So, hello everyone. My name is Otilia Baraboy. I am the executive director of the American Romanian Cultural Society. We are based in Seattle, but starting with last year, we started opening branches in other places in Detroit and Arizona this year. We have a Romanian heritage school, and also we run a Romanian film festival and other cultural events with artists and organizations from Romania and from all over the US. The Mary Hill Museum of Art are our long-term partners. And this is, as a Romanian, born in Romania, I came here 20 years ago. I think that if you live here once in your lifetime, you need to go visit Mary Hill Museum of Art, and you'll understand why the minute you step in, because you'll find there's no other place like Mary Hill Museum of Art. You'll find a piece of Romania there. Wonderful presence. Queen Mary of Romania went there in 1926 to inaugurate the museum, and I'm sure Lou will tell you more about it. I'm very happy to introduce Magda today. Magda Sedlik Nica is an international artist, I should say. She was born in Romania, but she lived in Rome before coming to Seattle a few years ago for 20 years. She is an accomplished artist. She works with glass blowing, jewelry design, painting, and also poetry. She had exhibits in Rome, London, Tokyo, and Luxor. And she will have this exhibit as part of a bigger collective interactive project, multicultural, multi-layered. I cannot find, there's so many words that could describe this big project. The Exquisite Gorge project, put together by the curator of education at Mary Hill Museum of Art, Luis Palermo, who will tell us more about it. So Magda will make a piece that will be part of this collective exhibit. And in order to prepare this big exhibit that will take place on August 4, we will organize other series of events featuring Magda, or also textiles from Romania. Okay, there is a big collection of textiles brought there, and also through donations, folk costumes brought there by Queen Mary of Romania, and I'm sure Lou will be able to tell you more about it. So I'll pass it on to Lou. Hi, Lou. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today, and I am so excited to be a partner, a community partner with the ARCS. This group of people brings so much love and joy to every program, and I feel so lucky to be here today. So thank you, Otilia, for inviting me and for your leadership in bringing the Romanian stories to America and making them part of our joy too. So thank you for that. I am so thrilled that the Exquisite Gorge project is happening with Magda Nica as one of its artists, and the American Romanian Cultural Society as one of our partners. It's all about community, and this community is just exciting to work with. So the goal is for the Columbia River to be divided into 10 sections, from Portland, the Willamette confluence, to Walla Walla, the Snake River confluence. Each section has a community embedded in it who is partnered with a fiber artist who is outstanding in their field, Magda being representing section 7, right, Magda? Section 7. And that is the section where Mary Hill Museum is found. So each section works with the community. The artist works with the community to understand that community and the impact the river has in the community's life, and also teaches the community about that particular media, How many of you have your grandmother's blanket thrown on the back of your couch that you cover up when you're watching Netflix, but don't think about the artistry and the imagination and the technique that went into it? And fiber arts is so much more than grandma's blanket. As you can see on both Otilia and me, fiber arts is a media, it is a fine art, and we want to educate everyone about how it happens. So each section is given a very distinct definition of where the river is to come on or go off their work of art. And on August the 6th, we will bring each section together to create an exquisite corpse, meaning that the river will flow from one work of art to the next seamlessly for about 70 feet. These sculptures are 6 feet long, 4 feet wide, and anywhere from 4 feet to 5 feet tall. And it's going to be an amazing work of art that will be up for the month of July. Individual sculptures will be at each site, and then they will come together for a big event, which will be just so much fun. And I need you to put it all on your calendar. It's August 6th, all day long. We will have live sheep that will be sheared, and their wool will be combed, and we will have spinning wheels that will spin, and knitters and crocheters and weavers and things for you and your family to do, many things to take home. It's going to be a festive day. So plan on that. If you want to keep track of what's going on, please look at Maryhill Museum's website under the Discover tab. And we're going to keep a running total of all the programs that are available to you all along the river, because we have not just Magda and her techniques, but we also have fiber artists, we have weavers, we have felters, we have people in fashion who use recycled materials. So thank you all for being here today. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Magda, for your skill and your magic. Thank you, Otilia, for being just the best community partner I could ever hope for. So thank you all for being here today. I will put the date in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I can jump in, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, you're right on, Magda. You know.
Okay, so this is how it started. Otilia came to have a coffee in July 2020, and she saw this painting of mine, which is mixed media canvas, fabric on canvas. It's a white piece, and immediately she connected the dots, and she asked me if I was interested in maybe hearing about this project. So she put us through, Louise and I, and so this is how everything started. The writing was defined by a system of symbols and rules for their interpretation. And as we know, speech had come long ago in human communities, but the writing represented a fundamental need, which was the one to transmit knowledge, the knowledge that humans gain through direct experimentation to the next generations, from a generation to another, and from a place to another, because migration processes started early on, right? And the symbols have magical significance. Their meaning, unfortunately, was lost in the midst of time, and nowadays only a few people are able to read or to decode them, as we would decode a Morse code message that was transmitted to us from our ancestors. And in this workshop, I will try to share some information about these traditions, the customs, the mysteries that our ancestors inscribed in the stone and put on the canvas and on the objects they surrounded themselves with. And based on those symbols that, on my opinion, were downloaded from this library of universal knowledge. The motifs, the traditional motifs, both regional and universal, are loaded with rich symbolism and astonishing history. They speak about the human's life and about their communion with the nature and the surrounding objects. Oh, I did it right. Okay. So, and I would love to have the pointer, but I don't find the pointer, so I will not make any disaster anymore. But I think you can figure something there. Regarding the sewn magic insignia, the first purpose was to protect the wearer. So it was like a shield that was protecting the wearer from evil spirits and bad luck. And that's why, for this reason, appropriate prayers and were said before the spinning, or the spinning of the wool, the weaving, or the knitting. So nothing was made just to be done. There, behind every action was a very significant other action. And from the universal symbolism, I focused on 5 symbols today. First, the water as an homage to the Columbia River, the circle, which represents the cyclicity of life, the spiral, which represents energy, triangle, which speaks about energy and divinity, and the tree of life, that it's about knowledge. The water, as we all know, is the source of any form of life, and and life exists because water exists. In the water, the matter dissolves and the people drawn. And from a psychological point of view, water is the symbol of deep layers of our subconscious, which is populated by various and mysterious forms, like thinking about the fish, the varieties of fish and sea creatures. It's a symbol of indistinct powers of the soul, and secret and unknown motivations for each of us, represents the secret and unknown motivations. And as an elementary symbol, it has 2 contradictory meanings, or they can seem contradictory. On one hand, the water enlivens and fertilizes, and on the other hand, it suggests sinking and decay and a sort of a sunset. In mythology, water as a flood represents ends the primordial cycles of creation and destroys the forms that are not longer pleased by God. Water is also our emotional, irrational, creative side. It reminds us of our mother, and it's the memory of the amniotic fluid in which our life began. So water can be defined as a prolonged maternal hug over time. And you can do that also thinking about a nice long warm bath in the bathtub. It's the same sensation, right? The letter M that we have here in Hebrew symbolizes the tangible water. It's the mother and the matrix at the same time. It's the origin of all that is, and it's the manifestation of the transcend. There is water under the surface of the earth, and that is associated with the primordial chaos. Instead, the water that falls from the heaven, from the sky, is associated with the blessed soul and with the purity of both spirit and body. And that's why in many religions, or many religious rituals, better, the water is used to cleanse the man of impurities and guilt. In the Christian tradition, holy water plays a very important role in this regard. And from Middle East, right, where the Islam was born, to Japan, to Buddhism, ablution plays an essential role and takes place before every single religious rituals. Going to the cosmogony of the Mayan population of the peninsula of Yucatan, water represents a vision of the other world, or of the afterlife, if we want to put it that way. And in that way, it appears on the clay vessels that were found by archaeologists all around the peninsula. In the geographic space of Asia, the water is this substantial form of manifestation. It's again considered the origin of life. It's an element of bodily and spiritual regeneration. Because it's at the same time fluid, so tends to dissolve, and homogeneous, and that tends to coagulate. From this point of view, it corresponds to the notion of sattva, which in Hindi means light, goodness, purity. And in the Egyptian mythology, the most recurrent image of creation is a mountain rising from the waves. And water as a symbol of life, as a cosmogonic symbol, it's a gateway to eternity, precisely because it purifies, it heals, and rejuvenates. That's why 2 liters of water are recommended every day, because water keeps the cells alive. And I made this little slide where I explain why. So at birth, the baby contains from 75 to 78% of water in his body. And then in adulthood, the percentage goes to 60 for the men and around 55 for women. That's why women get wrinkles earlier. And when the water level in the body goes down to 50, that's when the death of the physical body arrives, because the body changes. And contrary to popular belief, the organs that are more moisty are the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, and not the veins, right? Because we would all think that maybe veins would be more watery or more moisty, but it's not like that. As a matter of fact, the water is stored in like 100 trillions of cells, and that makes of us a set of packages of slightly salty water. And when the water evaporates, it's exactly like the sea where the life came from. And when that water evaporates and disappears, the body transforms into something else. In the civilizations that I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned all of them, the icy water and ice express stagnation of the highest degree. It's the lack of human warmth. It's the absence of that inspiring and creative feeling that love is. Frozen water represents the complete mental stagnation and the death of the soul. The most important thing to remember about the water is that water has memory. It stores information like a CD nowadays. And every event, human thoughts will change the molecular structure of the water under the influence of those. If you are interested in this topic, you can find many information in a documentary called Water Has Memory. You just Google it and you will find it, and you will see amazing discoveries about the properties of the water. Blue, I don't have the pointer, but anyhow, blue or silver threads were used to represent water in seams. The symbol of the water was two straight parallel lines if the settlement where the person was living was on the shore of tranquil waters, on the shore of a lake. If the settlement was on the agitated water, these lines would become also wavy, and this is how it was represented, the water in the as a symbol in the clothes. And in the ancient pottery of many peoples around the world, the water on the water jars, there was depicted this triangle with a tip down, because it's the direction of the drop. So how the drop goes, it's the triangle has the tip down. The next symbol, as we said, it's going to be the circle that together with its center, the cross and the square are represent the second fundamental symbol. If we think of the circle, we think of an extended dot to its perfection. The dot, and because of that, the dot and the circle have common symbolic properties that speak about perfection, homogeneity, absence of distinction or division, and unity. So the circle unites more than and doesn't divide. The concentric circles represent degrees of being. Represents the inner hierarchies that man created within himself. It's a symbol of regeneration. It's a movement without beginning or end. And it's also the most widespread geometric symbol. And it's related also to the appearance of the moon and the sun. According to Neoplatonic and Platonic philosophical theories, it is considered the perfect form. And I'm going to quote here, and I'm going to really read. It's the temple of and the sanctuary of Apollo is described as round as a circle, so perfect as a circle. The royal fortress of Plato's Atlantis island is a system of concentric circles of land and water. In mystical systems, Lord is imagined as a circle with ubiquitous center and symbolizes the human perfection and unparalleled understanding, unimaginability, eternity, and the absolute. As I said before, circle has no end, has no beginning, has no orientation, nor no direction. The celestial vault, due to the circular shape, is represented like a circular dome, and this is the reason why the circle is also symbol of the sky and everything that is related to the spiritual aspects of life. When spikes when spokes were drawn inside the circle, we got the wheel, the symbol of the wheel, that is an expression of dynamic and motion and movement. Also, the Egyptian symbol of eternity is a knotted cord in form of a ring. And we get to a very interesting and debated part. The geometric figure opposite to the circle is the square. And in antithesis, the square represents the terrestrial universe and everything related to the material side. The circle is the symbol of the divine and the sky, and the square is the earth and humanity. And here it comes the well-known problem of determining the area of the circle, I quoted, or the transforming the square into a circle with the exact same surface, with the perfect geometric center. And that symbolizes the efforts of the people to succeed in passing their own essence into that of divinity and to purify themselves in their process of reaching of the divine essence. In Kabbalah, we find this concept very well developed, and Kabbalah manifested lots of interest in the circle and square. And in this case, the circle inscribed in a square, meaning being interpreted as a symbol of the divine sparks inside the material shell. In various Native American tribes, the circle symbolizes the cosmic appearance of the Great Spirit. And I put here a fragment of a poem by Wadsworth Longfellow. The comparison of God with a circle, whose center is everywhere, is also a Neoplatonic idea. And this idea, we find it in the Sufi philosophy. And I quote Rumi, who said, "If we split a speck of dust, we would find in it a sun and planets revolving around it." And I think, and you might agree, that nowadays physicists would say the exact same thing. In various places on the earth, like India, China, Anatolia, Mexico, Caucasus, the signs dedicated to the sun and the sky were also in the shape of a circle, and they were drawn in exactly the same way, but in this physical distance and also in a distance in time. They seem drawn by the exact same hand. It's like the same person went in these different places on earth in different ages and draw this this exact same sign. On clothes, the sewn circles represent the cyclicity of life and the divinity. And this is, I had other things, but we are running late, so I'll move to the next one, to the spiral. That is important, and it means regenerative energy. It's a universal movement. It is frequently found in nature, as in the vine, in the, I think it's called morning glory flowers that have the same pattern, in the animal kingdoms like snails and shells, and evokes the evolution of a force or evolution of the state of something. In humans, we found it as our DNA, and it's related to the evolutionary scale. And through the ascendant spiral, we transmit something outside, we transmit something to the universe. Instead, the descendant spiral, we take information in. I quote, "It's an open and optimistic motif. It expresses the appearance of this circular motion that springs from one single source and maintains this movement and prolongs it to the infinity. It's about two endless lines that connect uninterruptedly the two extremities of becoming." I should have changed that earlier, but anyhow, yeah, so it's symbolizes also emanation, extension, development, cycle continuity in progress, and creative rotation. And I'll be back on that. These are some petroglyphs around the world that they look astonishingly, whatever, similar to me. These spirals were also related to the cosmic symbolism of the moon, as we saw in a previous slide, the aquatic symbolism of the shell, and the fertility symbolism represented by the double volute. The helical spiral, right, compared to the flat one, has a slightly different symbolism. It is rather related to the labyrinth, whose evolution starts from the center, and the involution takes the movement back to the center. It's a little bit the same concept about the knowledge. We send knowledge out, we take knowledge in. Also, the double spiral symbolizes the two meanings of the movement, which is birth and death. In Hindu is kalpa and pralaya, which is the initiatory death and rebirth into a transformed being. Also, the double spiral is the path of the midline in the yin and yang, which separates the white part from the black part of the figure. It's also presented in China, wrapped around the Chinese dragon. And what I found it is, as the tree of life, it's a leitmotif symbol. It's everywhere. Everywhere I looked on the face of the earth, you can find this symbol. And also the symbol of the spiral shell is reinforced by these mathematical speculations. We all know about the golden number, about the perfect number, the gold, I don't remember how it's called right now. I have a lapsus, but you know what I'm speaking about. The Fibonacci, right? The Fibonacci series of numbers, sequence, thank you. And I quote again, the symbolism is a sign of balance of the order of being in the rush of the movement. For the Pueblo Indians of the tribe of Zuni, during the great celebration of the winter solstice, which overlaps with the new year, on the first year, a fire would be lit on an altar, and around this fire, they would sing spiral songs and dance spiral dances. And another example of rotating dance is the one of the swirling dervishes. And Gilbert Durand says about this being the permanent being faced with the fluctuations of change. For many people from the sub-Saharan Africa, The spiral or helix symbolizes the dynamics of life and the movement of the soul in the creation and in universal expansion. I have other quotes from Gilbert Duras, who says that the spiral symbolizes the soul's journey after death, along paths unknown to it, but which lead it to the central abode of the eternal being. And he adds to that, I believe that for all the civilizations we meet, from the North Cape to the Cape of Good Hope, for the countless civilizations of America and Asia or the Polynesians, the spiral is the journey that the soul of the deceased undertakes after death to the final destination. And in Europe, for the first time, the spiral was mentioned in the culture of Cucuteni, and Cucuteni is not far from the place where Otilia was born and where some of my husband's ancestors were born. And I wanted to share this, and this is also an anthropomorphic symbol, the silhouette of the woman, and the spiral on this clay vessel that was founded by archaeologists. I have to stop here about the spiral, go on to the next, to the triangle, and go quickly. It's the first geometric figure after the dot representing number 1 and the line, which is the connection between two dots, number 2. The triangle speaks to us about the need for balance, for harmony, for spirituality. It also represents the search for the self, the search for perfection and inner order. It's also the acceptance of the simplicity of the being, the need to detach from complications, especially nowadays. And it's the awareness of order, and there is this natural movement that exists beyond one's own will. The base of the triangle represents matter and time, and the two sides represent the poles of light and darkness, good and evil, and equal sides. So equal sides of the triangle actually represents harmony, consciousness, balance between different forces in action. As I said, the triangle is related to the symbolism of the number 3, represents the evolution that appears after staticity, number 1, and the conflict of dualism, number 2. It's this expression of movement, creativity, and opening to the future. And through the union of the 3 flat lines creates a flat surface, and that exceeding the purely linear dimension. So the triangle, therefore, is a novelty and also represents potential about to be discovered. The 3 vectors of the triangle are related to birth, the birth of life, of new ideas, loves, projects, and the 3 angles indicate protection and maturation. There is the 4th vector that one rises to the top of the pyramid, and that 4th vector projects the flat dimension into the intense spiritual and esoteric energy. The triangle is disarmingly simple. It's a perfect synthesis of the man and his adventure in the world of matter, idea, and spirit. And for this reason, in the Christian religion, the eye of God appears inside a triangle. Again, in the Christian religion, we meet the triangle as a sign of the Trinity, initially representing the hand, the head, and the name of the Lord, and then it was imposed as the symbol of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. What we saw in the previous slide, the triangle called delta of light, in Masonry, present on buildings or objects, represents the search for perfection and harmony. In Freemasonic symbolism, the all-seeing eye with the 9 sparks, 9 rays, is the symbol of divinity. In the Masonic concept, the base of the triangle speaks about means duration, and the 2 sides speak about darkness and light. And an isosceles triangle with the base larger than the sides, like the pediment of the temple, with an angle of 180 degrees on top and 36 degrees on the 2 corners, it corresponds to the so-called golden number. Yeah, and we see here in the Greek temple, that's an example of such triangle, right? In Kabbalah, in the book of Zohar, it is mentioned, and I quote again, "In heaven, the 2 eyes of God, together with his forehead, form a triangle, and his reflection forms a triangle on the waters." In old Mexican manuscripts, a triangle-shaped symbol similar to our letter A, capital A, is the sign for the year. And in Western art, sketches with triangle compositions were often used in architecture and painting, especially when dealing with the Trinitarian themes. For the old Mayans, for the old Maya population, the triangle is a glyph of the sun's ray, and also is the tip coming out from a sprouted corn. I think it's called kernel, right? This double association with the sun and with the sprouted corn relates the triangle twice as symbol of fertility. I don't remember if I mentioned before, but in the magic rituals, people used to position themselves in order to form a perfectly round circle. And when protection was asked, a triangle would be inserted in that magic circle. I'll go quickly and to the tree of life, trying to see how long we have. So it's the tree of life again. It's one fundamental symbol. It's present in all mythologies, religion, philosophical traditions, anywhere on earth. This is a symbol of constant evolution, ascension to heaven. It contains the longing for immortality, the man's longing for immortality, and evokes the symbolism of verticality. It's a bridge that connects symbolically the Father, the heaven, with the branches, to the Mother, the earth, with the roots. Also, the roots represent the ancestors, the trunk represent myself, and the branches represent the hairs. The tree facilitates the communication between 3 levels of the cosmos: the underground, through the roots, the surface of the earth, and through the trunk and the low branches connects to the top, and the top attracts the sunlight, right? Or it's enlightened by the sunlight. It gathers all the elements, so the water circulates through its sap, the earth is incorporated through the roots, the leaves are nourished by the air and light, and if we rub pieces of wood, fire sparks will get some fire sparks, so fire. It was considered the axis mundum, the axis of the world around which the cosmos evolves. In Yggdrasil civilization, in the northern Germanic tribes, or in the holy tree Siba, I think it's called in the Mayan, and in the Yucatan Peninsula. So all these spread civilizations consider the tree the axis of the world. The Egyptians used to worship a sycamore, and the goddess Hathor, for them, the goddess Hathor was preparing a drink that she would give to the soul of the dead ones. So the association between the tree of life and the divine manifestation is founded in all religious traditions. We find it on petroglyphs, on cave paintings, on pottery, in Assyrian culture, in Chinese, Iranian, Mesopotamian mythology. It's all over Europe, from Sweden, Germanic tribes, to Africa, to Australia, in the monotheistic religions, as Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. In the Upanishads, the tree of life was inverted, so the roots were up and the branches were down. And in this case, the photosynthesis was explained as the result of the manifestation of the power of celestial beings. I go again to the book, in the Jewish esotericism, in the Zohar, we find the idea that the tree of life stretches from top to bottom, and the sun illuminates it completely. And it represents the symbol of the ultimate spiritual experience. So I don't know how clear I was, or how fluent I was, and if I missed, I skipped many informations, but I hope that somehow it was a flow. And what I am trying to say with this is, like, okay, the Egyptians raised the pyramids to leave their knowledge of the secrets of the universe to posterity. The Mayan civilization built temples, but all the cultures spread on the face of the earth carved their dreams and stories and life in stone, in the walls of the caves that gave shelters to them. Later, they painted these symbols on ceramic, carved on wood, and embroidered on canvas. So clothing is an art and is also history at the same time. It's like a parchment on which all the peoples without distinction represented their hopes, their beliefs, their life experience, their myths, the way they perceived the world. And the question for me was, how in the world was possible that at a distance in space and time, to the exact same symbol was given the same meaning. And so I imagined an iCloud, right? Like an etheric, energomagnetic space, a core, how Nikola Tesla defined it, where all the ideas are stored, the ideas and the potential of the ideas. And some representatives of the civilizations had access to this space, of stored ideas. They brought those ideas from the collective imagination to the humanity, into the reality, because every single item, every object, concept, law, act, fact starts as an idea. There is the idea, and then the idea gets materialized. So an idea that someone, somewhere, somehow accessed, passed it through their own logical and emotional filters, and then gave it back to the humanity. So these symbols are brought from universality, from the collective imagination, from this database that I called iCloud, and where all the discoveries of the humanity are uploaded, and where people get access from time to time. What these symbols tell me, what I understood by studying this, it's like the other, okay, the others, the other country, the other ethnic group, the other civilization, the other habit, religion, whatever it's other, it's just another version of me. Okay, it's a version that I have to access, that I have to understand, I have to integrate to make it mine. And eventually, if I have enough grace and I am gifted enough to elaborate through my own filter and to give it back. This is what I wanted to share with you. These are some clothes from around the world. You see motifs that repeated themselves, okay? And the last thing I wanted to leave with is this quote from Nikola Tesla that I mentioned before. So my brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. And I know that it exists. And if you are interested, there is a little bibliography here. The texts and books I got inspired from. And this is my thank you to all of you for making time and taking time and coming here today. Thank you.
Wow, Magda, thank you so much for the marathon. It was really impressive. I love symbols and symbolism, and I got caught into studying them at some point, and I know it's a labyrinth. You can, get lost, and then, like you said, it's like, and I love the image of an iCloud that we share, and I think it's so cool to talk about, what brings us together at this subtle, unconscious level, and it's so cool to see how all cultures, kind of took the same symbol and integrated them in their culture, and then how we were influenced. It's really beautiful, and I love the approach.
So, excuse me for interrupting, but I wanted to say this, but I didn't make it. So when we study just a little tiny bit, what we find out is that there are the things that unite us, that keeps us together as unity, are far more than the things that divide us. Mm-hmm. So there is actually there is no division in nature. Mm-hmm. There is no separation. Division and separation appeared a way later, and where then the struggle of the humankind arrived with that. But we should remember that we all come from one. We are all one. Sorry.
Thank you, Magda. Now I have, I'm sure people have questions. There are a few wonderful comments in the chat. Lou has a question that I would love to, I was wondering myself. Lou, would you like to address that directly to Magda?
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I wonder if you would give us a minute to understand how this will influence your sculpture for the Exquisite Gorge project.
Actually, yeah, it does, because I have several fabrics from different parts of the world. So the fabrics that I am using right now are coming from different parts of the world. This is all I can say. I don't want to say more about that.
Thank you.
So yes, don't be shy, ask your questions directly or in the chat.
While you're reading that long one, I did want to say I was excited to see in your presentation some of the Romanian clothing that was on exhibition at Maryhill last year. And it was very exciting to see how those symbols were just so evident in the clothing that was on exhibition. It was, and then to go downstairs where the indigenous people galleries are, to see those symbols reflected, like you said, that they're, centuries and miles apart. So it was very exciting to make that connection.
Yeah, actually, I used a few pictures, more than a couple, that I took at the museum. And when you look at the embroideries, no matter where they were made, the pattern are exactly the same. And what's interesting is also the color that people used to represent certain symbols. Okay, so, and are also the same. So the water was represented with blue threads. The field was represented with yellow or orangey thread, and so on. The grass and the concept of oh my God, of not only fields, but prosperity was green, right? And it's interesting how I shared some clothes from all around the world, and they had the same patterns, and also those patterns were sewn with the same color almost.
Wow. We have excellent, thank you, Magda, for making this. This is what struck me too when I went to Maryhill Museum of Art. That's why I was saying you need to go there in order, especially if you're like a recent immigrant like myself. I mean, I came here 20 years ago, but the fact that there is such a place that connects the two worlds, it's like there's a connection in your mind that is made and stays there and makes you feel like you belong, to the bigger picture, when you feel uprooted. So we have a question from Bianca. Since Romanian culture is predominantly Orthodox influenced, how do pagan symbols such as you described, spiral, circle, survive in folk wear? How do the two coexist? Do village peoples still lean into these symbols as something that they want to preserve, or did the Orthodox religion erase some of this? Interesting, the complex question.
Yeah,
you can tackle it. Yeah.
Consider, I'm going to open the chat. So, okay, so consider that the Christians arrived later, okay, and they somehow and the religion, the Christian religious, oh my God, religion embraced some symbols. So we find these symbols, we find the spiral in the iconography. We find the triangle, we find the anthropomorph symbol as the eye or the silhouette in the iconography. So they coexist very nicely together. I don't.
Did they adopt it then, the folklore, like the village people? Did they adopt it as their new belief system, or is there like a separation in how they made their embroidery? Like when they were making the spiral, did they think of their pagan beliefs, or were they thinking of like their new, like if they adopted the Orthodox religion, did it transfer over for them, you know?
Okay, so I need to make a distinction here. So Orthodox is a branch of Christianity. Okay, it's not a religion by itself, it's a branch. This is important to say and to specify because we didn't find we didn't invent the hot water, okay? And I missed a great part of the question, but yeah, so these symbols were adopted and somehow englobed, right, by the Christianity.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Because we have to consider it from a logic of coexistence and recognizing values. So it doesn't mean that if a new culture, a new ritual, a new whatever comes after something else has to swipe. But it was very interesting and important that the Christian religion embraced these important and very meaningful symbols.
I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question.
Do you see, Magda, Cheryl's question? That's a really good, pertinent one, I think. And I think that what Megan's comment too kind of goes along the same lines, you know, when we think of the people who lived there, right, at the time before Christianity arrived. And I think in Romania, there is a mix of paganism and Christianity that's very unique to the place, to the entire, you know, Balkans and, you know, that area, because you have a lot of rituals, you know, you still have witches, you have still, you know, and there was no Inquisition, you know, like in Western Europe. So paganism is pretty much, you know, coexists, like Magda said, with the official state religion, you know.
But how I know that what they were thinking, it's not that I know that, I searched and I learned about that, and the way it was established, they did the same thing they did with the hieroglyphs. Okay, when the hieroglyphs were discovered by Europeans, a huge amount of work was done to understand the meaning of every single hieroglyph. And the same kind of work was done to understand what that specific symbol shown. And also there is in Europe, and not only in Europe, there is the folklore. The oral part of the folklore was very powerful till 50 years ago. So all this knowledge was orally transmitted from grandmother to granddaughter, to mother to granddaughter. So, and on these clothes, on these blouses, every girl, before getting married, she was sewing her story. The younger the girl was, the brighter the colors would be. And then when the girl was getting to be a woman, getting married, having children, and so on, the colors would be different and the patterns would be different, because the colors would, I don't remember that name, that word in English, estompat. Help me, Otilia.
Faded.
Thank you. Right. So the colors would, or darker, instead of being full of color, multiple colors, they would turn into dark green, black, dark red, burgundy, and the symbols would be different because that person accumulated experience in their life. And on the clothes, there were these universal symbols. There were terrestrial, earthy symbols. There were zoomorphic, anthropomorphic, vegetal and animal patterns. And it was an evolution. So the own story became history on the blouses that they were sewing for themselves.
So Magda, this is really wonderful. I'm sure like everybody would like to stay more. I know that it's such a rich topic, but I'd love to wrap up, you know, our events with kind of open, you know, for discussion. I think the dialogue between all the cultures, you know, that coexist in that area, and also the fact that we are bringing some of it here at Mary Hill, you know, in August. It's like, it's so exciting because we'll create a dialogue with all the, you know, other, you know, ethnic groups and cultures who have been living here for a long time. So I'm very grateful to you, Magda, for this introduction, and I'm very grateful to Lou and to all of you. We will clean up the recording a little bit and we'll post it, you know, on our YouTube channel. Please stay tuned, everyone. Sign up for our newsletter, for the Mary Hill newsletter as well. They have wonderful events, and we will come back with other, you know, other events in this series promoting this collective big project, you know, that will take place this summer. So thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Magda.
Thank you.
And see you all, you know, soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Bye, everyone. So
bye, everyone.
Bye.